Hey, what's up, guys? This is Brendan with EVOQ Bike. We've got an awesome interview with Frank Overton from FasCat Coaching. And in the beginning, I used to be a FasCat athlete, so we actually catch up a little bit. I learned some more about how FasCat came to fruition, how this whole thing started with Frank. I really enjoyed the history. If you're only here for the training tips, that begins around minute 17. But I think the history gives some more context to where Frank's coming from, where I'm coming from in coaching. And usually I annotate a lot of the YouTube video. But instead, when something pops up and you have like a question or a topic comes to your mind, I would prefer, why don't you just enter that in the comments below instead of me entering my comments on the YouTube video? I think this will make it much more engaging, and it will allow you to, think about what the topics that we're bringing up and how it applies to your own training and racing and events coming up. So that's the only change to these interviews. We've got a ton more coming your way, and I hope you enjoy. Thanks again, Frank, for coming on. This was awesome. What's up, man?
Hey Brendan, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Frank?
I'm well, thanks. What you up to?
Just finished some dinner and getting ready to chat with you about cycling, training, all that good stuff. How are you doing?
I'm good. I think it's not quite dinner time here. Are you Central Time or East?
I'm in East now. I used to be in Central. I'm in Florida right now, so it's
Oh,
been a little
okay.
bit of adjustment. Yeah. So I had to do the
Nice.
even though there's four time zones in the US, when you were like mountain, I was like, okay, get this right. Central.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still daylight here, so yeah.
Yeah, it's getting dark. But it's weird being so far down south. It's the sun sets almost like 40 minutes later than in Tennessee. So it's
Mhm.
like really just a weird adjustment. But it's
Yeah.
good. It's good to be in
That's
some warm
cool.
weather. Yeah, it's been pretty cold in Tennessee and not really fun to train in. So,
What part of Florida?
Fort Lauderdale, so just north of Miami.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So it's one road. It's A1A. It's
Mhm.
if you look on like a Strava map, it looks extremely boring, but for some reason it's not. And I think it might be mental of just like palm trees and you're like, wow, it's January and I'm in shorts and a jersey, but there's
Yeah.
just so many endurance athletes here too. Like 4 hour ride, you probably easily on a weekday pass 200 people. I mean, you're used to seeing stuff like that in Boulder. Memphis,
Mhm. Mhm.
not so much.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
there's always people out riding. Doesn't matter the weather either. It's just, yeah, year round.
yeah. How's the weather there right now? Is it full on winter?
Yeah, I mean, we had a nice 45-degree sunny day,
Cool.
perfectly fine for riding. I mean, we got some snow like last week, but it's all melted now. So, yeah,
Yeah. Cool.
fairly typical. I mean, it
Yeah.
gets cold as nuts at night, but you know, from like 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., you can ride, no
Yeah.
problem.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Hmm.
It's well, man, you came to mind of I've been doing these interviews with different athletes, different people in the cycling space, and just a lot of good tips from some of the rally guys. And I forget what made me think of you, or maybe I was actually talking to Jason, and you're someone that's been in the game for so long that kind of I'm sure I've read some of your history and I remember a little bit of how you started Fast Cap, but just how much has changed, and wanted to get a grip of kind of like how you see things, because you've
Hmm.
forgotten a lot of things before I was even getting into cycling. So I'm like, oh, Frank would be a really good dude to chat with about this. uh,
Hmm.
and we kind of started this series of just I was on the phone with Patrick and we were talking about some random topic, someone like talking about CTL and something. I was like, man, I was explaining to this guy, it's CTL is not your race readiness. And I was like, damn, you know what, we should record this. Like, I think there's just a lot of stuff that we just don't have time to post.
Hmm.
So I think some of that kind of stuff comes out. And yeah, so I appreciate you sitting down and chatting for a little while and just get some stuff out to the people.
Yeah, yeah, you bet, man. I got your outline up here, and
Sweet. Well,
yeah, I'm ready to.
let's
Yeah,
start with the easiest question. Who is Frank Overton?
Frank Overton is a uh, cyclist, coach, dad, father, husband. and live in Boulder, Colorado. Are we recording live already?
We're recording. Let's record.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
I've been a cycling coach for close to 20 years now, and my story is that I'm from the South, like where you are. I grew up in Chattanooga and went to college in Virginia, and then was going to be a doctor, and I worked at the Bowman Gray School of Medicine in Winston-Salem. That's where I discovered mountain biking. So I played tennis.
And this is when is this? This is what year are we talking?
I'm going to date myself, but
That's
this
cool,
is
though. That's
95,
good.
95, 96.
Okay, awesome.
My third mountain bike race ever, or third bike race ever, was I went down to Atlanta, and they were having an amateur bike race on the Conyers mountain bike Olympic race course. That was the first year mountain bikes were in the Olympics. And yeah, raced that course at like third ever race ever. So that was then.
Jumping in, dive in.
Yeah. I've raced all over the South, like never rode, but all mountain bike. I didn't get into the road racing until I moved out here to Colorado. Yeah.
I didn't know that. This is good. Already learning pearls from back in the day.
Totally. I mean, I've raced, you've heard of that mountain bike race called the Bump and Grind in Birmingham?
I think I've heard of it, but when I hear, it's mountain biking, it's just like,
yeah.
I do have a couple of mountain bikers though now that are athletes, so I'm getting more in tune with that. But no, so you did that one down there in Birmingham?
I mean, I've raced all in every state in the South, like Natchez Trace.
Yeah.
In Helen, Georgia, near Chattanooga, they had a World Cup. Went and did that. Watched like the pros race, and the amateurs got to race on the same course. That was in 96. Yeah.
There's some really good road riding down there also. Some gnarly times and
the gaps.
Yeah. So so mid 90s, you're in the South, and then where did things go from there? Because you clearly didn't become a doctor.
I did not become a doctor. Well, what happened was, so I played tennis in high school and college, and it takes two people to play tennis. And when I moved to Winston-Salem out of college, I didn't know anyone there. And I was, had a job. And so I didn't have anyone to play tennis. And quite frankly, I was kind of burnt out on it.
Yeah.
But I had this mountain bike, and I didn't have anything to do after 5 o'clock, no homework, no tests. So I'd go ride that bike around the neighborhood for exercise. And then next thing you know, I rode it far enough to ride to a place where there was a single track. This place called Hobby Park. For everyone, all your listeners that lives near Winston-Salem, Hobby Park is where it all started.
Awesome.
And so, bought a mountain bike. My roommate, who was a doctor, a med student, he was like, "You're never going to go to medical school, are you?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm going." And he just saw how much I was riding.
Yeah,
but
it was like there is homework.
Yeah. But so I went to North Carolina State to get my master's, and then I started. They had a collegiate mountain bike race team. They had a collegiate team. That's where I did my first road race. With NC State, and by the time I got done with my master's, I was pretty done studying because I was a bookworm. I got like 4.0 GPA because that's what you have to get into medical school.
Yeah.
And I was riding the mountain bike. I was like, this is not where I want to go. So this is also when the internet was brand new. And
this is awesome, dude.
So I saw a commercial for Amgen on the TV.
Okay.
And at the end of the commercial, it said Amgen.com. So I went to Amgen.com, clicked careers, and I swear to you, the first job posting was in Boulder, Colorado. And I was like, that's it. That's like the mountain bike capital of the US. There's jobs there for me. And so I got done with the master's and drove out here and
got the job.
I did. I didn't get a job at Amgen.
Okay.
They moved their research facilities out to Thousand Oaks. Right when I got there, I went to literally the place, and I asked if I could, whatever, turn in my resume, and they're like, yeah, all the research is out in California now.
Like, oh,
But
damn, I'm here though.
I know. Don't worry. There's the thing about boulders is that at that time there was a ton of biotech companies out here. So I just went to the next company and got the next biotech job, and um, they were totally cool with like working odd hours to ride as much. And um, yeah, I in fact they had this thing called a TACman, is a polymerase chain reaction automated machine, and they wanted it to run 24 hours. So I volunteered to come in at 2 in the morning because there was 8-hour runtime cycles. I
Okay.
volunteered at 2 a.m. to keep this machine running so that I could ride during the daytime.
That's awesome. They're like, what a
Yeah,
great, the hard worker this guy's coming in too. You're like, dude, I just want to ride my mountain bike.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's. I mean, maybe that's a little bit who I am.
That's awesome, dude. I definitely didn't know the whole Frank story to Boulder. That is
Hmm.
great. And that's actually, I started on a mountain bike and then it was really more to ride to the beach. And I remember I first rode 16 miles. I was in Chicago and I rode in a big square and I was like, holy crap, I just rode 16 miles. That was incredible. I think that
Hmm.
was the first like cycling, like, wow, that's pretty awesome feeling that I had. And it wasn't until my mountain bike got stolen when I moved to upstate New York that I got a road bike.
Ah,
So yeah,
yeah.
it was a blessing in disguise. It was, my bike got stolen and I told my buddy and he was like, dude, so maybe you want to get a road bike. And I was like, skinny tire bike? I don't want that bike. He's like, okay, you suck off road, but when we go park to park, you're like racing. You're
Hmm.
literally doing what people do on a road bike. You should do that instead. And that's kind of how I found it. I'm
Yeah.
still horrible off road to this day. So
Yeah.
and then so when did you break off and start FasCat, or were you coaching people like a little bit like, hey, I'm going to coach a couple people while I'm doing this biotech thing, or how did that
Hmm.
whole thing come up?
Yeah. So biotech is super volatile in terms of like the first job I got was at a company, and I was like employee number like 22, and
Hmm.
like the founder won the Nobel Prize, and they had all this money coming in, and you know this technology looks good, but then when you try to make it work in like animal trials, and then if it doesn't work, everyone's like fired.
Yeah.
So I got fired a ton of times from various jobs along the way, just when their technology doesn't work out.
Hmm.
And so after a while, I think in 2002, after 9/11 and the dot-com crash, the company that I worked for, I was employee number 13. I got a patent out of it. Worked my butt off. They actually sponsored my mountain bike team for 2 years. The company, so it was awesome. And but yeah, they laid us all off January 3rd, 2002, and I came up. Well, I didn't, I couldn't find a job. It was like tough in biotech back then. And I came up with this idea to coach. And I was like, well, if I can coach 10 athletes at $100 a month, I can, you know, couch surf and make, run and train and race full time. And that's what I did in 2002, and did that on the Northern National Circuit. And um, yeah, during that time, I was, I never ever got to the point where I was coaching more than like one or two people. So it wasn't making money
Yeah.
or anything like that. And so I had to take another job in biotech, and I was employee number 7. And by this time, uh, do you remember Pez Cycling
Yeah.
News?
Yeah. I met
Uh,
Pez at a training camp with Mike Minerva. He came out there and was writing an article
yeah.
on the camp.
Okay. Yeah. Richard Pestis.
Yeah. He
Yeah. Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
hey Richard, if you're not watching this, but he just got hacked on Facebook because I got a message from Richard Pestis that
Ooh.
was like, "Hey, look at this video you're in," and I was like, Pez got Pez."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so in 2003, I got in touch with Richard, and said, can I write a training tip for you? And they needed content, so I did. I wrote the training tip I wrote was the right way and the wrong way to perform intervals with your SRM.
Sure.
And there are two reasons I chose that topic. But number one, I wanted to, show that, I knew what was up with power-based training because it was brand new and no one knew anything back then. And then
Mm-hmm.
two, also there were only like two power meters back then. There was SRM and power tap. And
Okay.
really power tap hadn't kind of developed as a product. So the SRMs were $4,000. So I knew if anyone was reading the article and it resonated with them, they had enough money to pay for a coach.
Totally.
And so that's why I wrote a lot about power-based training under the assumption that, okay, people with power meters at that time can also afford coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I actually, so I don't know if everybody, I've, referenced Jason before and being a FasCat athlete, but since we're on this call, I
Mhm.
started, you guys were technically my first coach. Mike Minerva helped me, but he was like,
Mhm.
once I got to Cat 3, he was like, you should probably talk to Jason, who's on your team now, and understand. And he had just come out to
Yeah.
Boulder, worked with you, I think, for like 3 or 6 months and came back. And
Mhm.
Frank, you were the one that gave me, you probably don't remember this, but I came out there to ride for like 4 or 5 days. It was, I did the 5-to-1 quickly. So I really didn't know what I was getting myself into of like, where do you go from there? And I think
Mhm.
road's always in a funny area, but it was really like, it seemed like the national races were becoming more and more like crits, crit heavy schedule, which was not my forte. And you looked at me and you were just like, so what's your plan, man? Like, you're doing this medical
Yeah.
device thing, and what, like,
Oh
who
yeah.
are you? And I was like, well, I don't know. Like, I got my Cat 1. I did really well at bat and kill. I don't really know like what the next step is. And you're like, well, if you want to actually do this and you want to get good, you need to be in the car. You need to go hit as many races as you can. And you need to
That's
not
right.
be doing just local little stuff, like get out of the pond. And I'm not talking
Mhm.
about Rochester. I'm talking about get out of the Northeast,
Yep.
travel to Arizona, da da da. And it was a very light bulb moment for me that made me think and consider where racing sat in my life, and made me, you guys actually put it in your athlete questionnaire, which I probably have stolen some of those questions, but the way you guys phrased it was, what's your totem pole of life and where does cycling fit in? And at that time, I was really gung-ho on trying to build this medical device business, and cycling was like neck and neck, but I had a really hard time visualizing myself giving one up for the momentum that I had with that to try and get more momentum going with cycling. And I've thought back to that conversation a lot of like, what would have been different. I don't think it was a right or wrong decision. But I always appreciated your insight as someone with experience and being like, okay, this is where you're at. Here's kind of the trajectory. Is like, start mapping this out. Like, you need to think about it. It's not just going to happen if you don't think about these types of pathways. And that was really valuable. It's been something I've passed along to other people because we're in a funny sport in the US. Like,
Mhm.
and I don't know, we're kind of going on a tangent here, but I think it's good. I think a lot of people too that want to go to Europe and then they get caught in the crit circuit. It's like, there are guys that are seeing, man, I'm winning big crits. Why am I not going anywhere next? It's like, dude, a lot of big teams don't care about that. Like, you need to think
Mhm.
of other ways and how to apply your racing to the racing that the next level's doing. So,
Right.
so you're in Boulder. So actually, let's jump into a couple of the training things. Like the first thing, the first bullet point that I had put up, and it's kind of relates to you writing that first article for Pez way
Mhm.
back in the day. What are some of the big things that you've seen change in training? And I mean, that is a huge question, but maybe
Mhm.
some highlights. And you mentioned the internet. The internet has blown things up. I mean, I'm sure you've read through the forums, and your FasCat has totally been like, you guys set a really good bar of producing content. And that's a big thing that I've tried to, when I was like, all right, I want to create this business. How am I going to do it? How are people in Oregon going to hear about me? And so, like, what have you seen in I mean, there's a million ways to go at that, but I'm just curious what you think when you're like, man,
Mhm.
from Pez till today.
uh, that is a giant question. I think um, when I started in 2002, 2003, no one knew anything about power-based training. It wasn't even a thing. Power
Mhm.
meters were too expensive and the pros didn't use them. And what what happened over the, from like '03 to '06, 7, and 8 is really the US based coaches were the ones that adopted the technology and the sports science first. And
Okay.
we taught the amateurs. And we were really the leading edge of the sports science and the technology. And around '06, '07, some of the world tour teams began to pick up with power based training. Training Peaks would sponsor, you know, uh, T-Mobile, some of the bigger teams like that. Uli with SRM was getting SRMs on most of the World Tour rider bikes, and then they caught on, and then they were like 5 years behind us. They were like, "Yeah, we're doing intervals." I'm like, "Well, we've been doing intervals for 5 years now by Power, duh."
Yeah.
But as soon as the pros caught on, and then you really saw power based training kind of go mainstream, maybe like 2015 with the rise of stages and the decrease in price of a power meter. Because
Yeah.
before stages, a cork was still, like
It was
16,
expensive.
1700 bucks, and
Yeah.
that's what about a power tap wheel was. But then once stages came along, and put it down to, between 400 and 600 bucks, then power based training really went mainstream. And and then that's when people forgot about the fundamentals. For me, that's what I've seen, a lot of people forget. And
That
to
was gonna be one
be
of my
honest,
questions. Yeah. Go on that.
it's time in equals performance out. And you put in more time, you ride more, you get faster. So
Do you think
but
that's on that point? I like that point though. Do you think that there's too much like shortcutting and like how do I do everything in 6 hours a week? Or is that would you see a lot of that? And people probably approach you with that type of question, like, hey, I want, my buddy's riding 15 hours a week. How do I do it in 7?
I don't know if we get real, I don't think they expect that. What I do think you see is a difference between amateur level training and professional rider training, or just people that want to go professional. There's a
Hmm.
big difference in how you train between, say, like masters, and then like a world tour guy or someone that has 15 to 20 hours a week to train. And so, you know and then also with like the rise of indoor training, Zwift, Trainer Road, all that, you know a lot of people think, we get this sometimes, is that you need to like sync the plan to Zwift or Trainer Road in order to follow the plan. I'm like, you can do this outside. And if you ride outside, you can do more than just an hour. You can ride an hour and a half or 2 hours, or like I'll think of, or you can do when we started talking about doing 4 and 5 hour rides on the weekends, I feel like that blew people's minds, because they were into these 1 hour workouts and riding hard like Sufferfest, which, you know,
Yeah.
doing a hard workout every single workout. And, again, forgetting the fundamentals of base training and, proper periodization. And there's a time we like to use the expression, timing is everything. And there's a time and a place for just about everything that people talk about. Yeah, I think, if I'm rambling.
No, no, no. That's really good. And that's actually when I hear that someone will say, "Well, I feel like I should stay inside to do these intervals." And I'm like, "So this is the issue is that it's great that inside is so
Mhm.
controlled, but it's so controlled that when you go outside, you are very uncontrolled and you don't know how to actually use the gears to hit the watts." Someone's like, "Well, I have rollers. I can't do intervals." I'm like, "Dude, my roads are like this. Shift down, go fast." Like, and then
Yeah.
and then you don't have to be hammering when it's a 5% incline. You go a little bit
Mhm.
slower actually, and you shift into a different gear. And I'm not trying to poo poo or diss on people that do like to do more of the training inside, but when they go to an event and they don't understand why, like, I just couldn't perform. Like, well, dude, look at your file. Like, you look like you were in a criterium and this is like a grand
Mhm.
fondo. Like, you just have no control of the bicycle. And
Yeah.
so it is very interesting to hear that. And I think indoor has its place, but like you said, just like every zone, every type of training, there's a time and a place for it. You need to get a little bit of everything and try and be well-rounded. And do you think that
Hmm.
coaching someone in that's doing US races or even Grand Fondos or whatever, I think it's very beneficial for someone to be more well-rounded, as opposed to people try to pigeonhole themselves into, I'm a sprinter or I'm a climber. Maybe because now a lot of people have WKO and they see that little word. Oh, well, WKO told me I'm a sprinter. I'm like, well, I mean,
Yeah.
don't you think a little bit of everything in the right way helps people address strengths and weaknesses and prepare them for their event? Or what's your kind of thought on that?
I think at the amateur level, it really behooves you to be, to be a more well-rounded cyclist as opposed to
Mhm.
try to become a sprinter or a climber. Generally, like you do at the world tour level, and in America, in the US, the racers that have the most fun are the ones that are usually the most well-rounded. Like, in when I raced road in the NRC races, I didn't win very much at all, but I could hang in a crit and I could, do a time trial, and then, I could climb. And, you know, to say like you're a sprinter when you're an amateur level race, you're immediately just saying you're not going to have any fun at a fondo
Yeah.
or a time trial. And the same way goes for juniors too. Just do it all, be well rounded, and your how your natural ability is gonna tell you what you're good at and what you're not good at, and you don't need like a power profile chart or whatever to tell you that. And same thing with like collegiate cycling. It's like just do it all, you know,
Yeah.
and gravitate towards the one that A is the most fun, and then B is what you do the best at, stuff like
Yeah.
that.
No, I like that. You mentioned, like, difference between world tour riders specializing and amateurs. You guys have some heavy hitters that come in there. What do you see from the world tour guys that, obviously an amateur is looking for you for everything. Like, tell me what to do, when to do it, how to do it. What are some ways? What are the pros even like looking for? I remember when I was there, actually, I did that bus stop ride with like Greg Henderson.
Yeah.
Somebody else was there. I was like, dude, this is crazy that I'm in a city with world tour dudes right now. And I mean, they
Hmm.
played super nice with us. What are they
Yeah.
looking for? Is it just like, uh, I don't even know what they're looking for.
You
What
mean
type of,
like in
just in like,
coaching?
yeah, and coaching and
Hmm.
advice. And I mean,
Hmm.
you had the place there where I think Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, was there doing oxygenated intervals. Since you're at altitude, he was coming in there
Hmm.
using the oxygen mask so he could actually put out power, but then get the benefits of being at altitude.
Yeah.
Uh,
Train low, sleep high.
so
Yeah.
maybe do they look to you too also probably for some science stuff, because clearly you're a super smart dude and they probably don't know any of that. What do these guys look for besides
I
just
mean,
like,
this
hey,
same
I
thing
ride,
that, yeah, I mean, the same thing that, amateur cyclists do. I mean, pro guys are and gals, they're very serious, and they're hard workers, and they appreciate the science and specificity, and they want to make use of every, leave no stone unturned,
Mm,
and to be their best. And
mm,
so they want a plan. They want to follow a plan. They want to use the technology, power-based training. They want to know. They want to have someone to talk with. They'll, A, hold them accountable, B, motivate them, and then C, really help them make some high-level decisions, like what to do and when, and what to
mm,
do if they get sick, or should they try to do this race if their team is asking them, and how to approach training camps. Motor pacing was a big thing. Obviously, the supplemental oxygen, what to do, and all that. And so, in one sense, they're very much like just any any other athlete. They you can be an amateur and want all that. And
mm,
um, yeah, they just happen to be physiologically gifted and hella fast, and maybe they've been doing it at that time. Remember how I mentioned that the pros kind of caught on to power-based training a little bit later?
yeah,
When they caught on, they were like really seeking out help in that regards.
just
A lot of
understanding the basics.
Yeah, like a
Okay.
lot of them came to us. They had their team had given them a power meter. They had no idea what to do with it, didn't even know, where to put their data or, what to make of it. A lot of
Mhm.
the pros for a couple of years, we would make fun of them because they would look at the numbers on their handlebar and never upload their data.
That's
They'd be,
hilarious.
they would just talk about numbers on the ride and never do any
That's great.
historical, post ride analysis. And then let alone like put it together in like, what's the data telling you from like 3 months, 6 months, the whole year. So, I mean, I think like that was back then. And, if that's answering your question.
It is. And I think
Mhm.
a point that you made that's really great, which is why I still have a coach, is the high level stuff. And that's what I see a lot of newer athletes getting stuck in. Jason had always said to me, he's like, dude, you got to zoom out and see the forest besides just banging your head against the tree every day, meaning every workout. And I think
Mhm.
the two things that stuck out to me that you had mentioned of like making those high level decisions, but also just having somebody there that like, if you fail the third interval, like just having somebody like, hey, what do you think about that? Like maybe I was just tired or like, I don't know, I just wasn't hitting it. And that's the one I really want to be crushing because that's the one that I need to like really knock out of the park. And just having that other person in your corner, like it's
Mhm.
anybody can find a plan online and whatever, but I almost think rather than buying a template, there should be a did I execute these? Like a lot of people are like, oh, I've gone out on this endurance ride. I'm like, okay, so FYI, you coasted for half this ride. So just cut the ride in half and
Yeah.
actually ride the bike. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. There's a lot of it kind of ties into this the internet and indoor, and I think a little bit of misinformation out there that you're not always doing what you think you're doing on the bicycle.
Mhm.
When athletes, everybody at some point, or I should never say everybody, but most athletes at some point hit a plateau. And there's a lot of these guys I've been talking to in these recordings where mindset has come up much more than I expected them to talk about, which has been really good, I think, for all of us, myself, every other amateur watching this type of thing. What do you think is how important do you look at mindset in helping people have a positive mindset towards their training and racing? And then when people hit a funk, I got a guy right now who's just like, dude, what's my legs? Like, what happened? And he's just in a crappy week. But how do you help people get past that? Besides just telling them maybe, dude, it's a crappy week, or you're just not hitting, like you're in a funk a little bit. What are some? How do you approach mindset with athletes?
Yeah. I mean, first I observe their mindset through their daily practice of following the plan, executing their intervals. You know, I'm big into communication. So get to know what they're saying about their workouts, and are they a positive person? Are they a negative person? Do they do they wear their last workout on their shoulder day to day, or kind of a lot of sports psychology, things like that.
That's a really
um,
good thing that I haven't thought about that way, wearing the workout on your shoulder. Like,
I mean, it's the same way with racing. It's like, people are like, I crushed that race and they have a great week, or man, that race sucked, and then they have a bad week.
yeah, I'm awful. I'm horrible.
Mhm. Yeah, but with training and being a coach and monitoring their training, you have the opportunity to really monitor their mindset. So, when you put in the long day, what do they say about it? Do they make excuses? Do they just do it and it's done, and they move on to the next workout? Like, and to talk about pros and amateurs, I've had experience working with plenty of pros that just had a Cat 4 mindset,
Mhm.
and I've worked with plenty of Cat 4s that had a champion's mindset. And
Interesting.
yeah, so but they just happen to be you know a
Super
Cat
fa
4, and they new to the sport and not physiologically as gifted, but dude, they were hardcore when it came to training and following the plan and getting it done. And that's what we joke about. We call it FTFP, and you can get a feeling for their mindset, because when you do VO2s, how does that person react to that workout emotionally?
Mhm.
Do they
Mhm.
go in there with fire in their belly and suffer and slobber and bite the stem and then say, here you go, coach? Or do they not complete it and list an excuse? Because what you're doing with VO2 max intervals or any difficult workout is you're just preparing them for difficult moments in racing, and or in just being trying to be a bike racer in general. And so how
Mhm.
they handle that is a glimpse into their mindset of how they're going to react to that crux moment of a race where it's do or die, and you can dig in and try to make it happen, or for some other reason maybe give up or not try or not be
Mhm.
aggressive, or uh, just kind of back out.
I think it's man, those are really good points that I think people can think about and apply to their own mindset and thinking. And it is tough when you have somebody that is negative or doesn't like a challenge and they rather have the layup than trying to go for the slam dunk. The dunk is much harder, but damn, if you dunk it, it sure feels better than laying it in. I remember I don't remember if I was talking to Jason but back in the day, and it was just having the mindset that I have before I get to this race, like a big race, I have to convince myself that I have a shot to win, that I have a shot to race, to do something, that I'm not just going to get dropped. Because when it does, when you're saying like when stuff hits the fan and it's do or die, if you have already convinced yourself that everyone else is faster, you stand 0% chance of sticking with them. They're just going to ride away. But if you
Mhm.
are like, I can do this, like you just go into another zone and it's like you give everything that you possibly have. And if you get dropped,
Mhm.
you get dropped. But at least you went there and you gave everything rather than gave some excuse and didn't believe in yourself. And is there what's a good way? And this is one thing, it definitely depends on the person. Some people are more open to trying to change their mindset and trying to simply just being more positive about their training and maybe detaching from bad workouts. Are there any tips that you could give somebody that if they are more of a negative mindset that they could use day to day? One thing I tell people, I'm like, listen, don't overthink this workout. It's just a bike ride. So like before they go, just to try and calm them down, maybe is there anything like you've coached so many people that like you have to have a bunch of people that you can think of where it's just like after the workout they're negative. What are some things that you would try to help
Mhm.
them change that if it's even
Yeah. No, I mean,
very tough to do?
it what you can do, one I like along with many things, is you can design workouts and set the athlete up for success,
Hmm.
and get them to crush a workout
Hmm.
and see the positive benefits of crushing a workout and doing well. And then like the way I design training is I want to set them up for success. I'm not going to give them a workout where there's a high probability that they're going to fail because they're tired and it's not in their head, it's in their legs. So
Right.
I try to, we're talking about training plan design, I try to stay away from that. Really set them up for success and then build upon that. Get them to another part in the training plan design, and give them a little bit bigger workout, and then a
Hmm.
little bit bigger workout. And then, if that goes well, get them so confident, or get them some confidence, that you put them on the start line with a lot of confidence, and they're brimming over with that confidence because what they've done in their training. And or send them to an easy race, or
Hmm.
we call those bayou races down in the south, like you know where the field size is 10, and they're just beating up on the local competition. So that's one way. But the other way, if they are negative, uh maybe get them not to focus on, it's like the workout or something. You can just be like, all right, let's keep moving forward, and talk about the successes and the things that they're doing right. There's always going to be something wrong going on with your like training, and maybe you don't feel that good, or the weather's crappy, or you had a flat tire, and in the middle of the second set of the workout and stuff like that. But it's kind of like what you were saying. Just keep that big picture in mind. Um, Yeah.
That's good, especially for people making their own plans. Like, get yourself some W's before you go into try and bite this big chomp. And
Hmm.
Stephen Bassett actually made that comment. He's like, we have this idea that when you win this big race, it's like all the planets align and everything went perfectly. He's like, no, he's like, you just had 25% of the race go wrong and the other guy had 30%. Like, it's never perfect. It's
Yeah,
just like you had the best of the luck, but never perfection.
that's
Um,
right. Yeah.
that is good because it is. I like that idea of helping somebody stack wins if they are, especially, and if they're getting in a funk. It's like sometimes okay, let's figure out how we can rebuild you back up here, because there is so much mental side to this sport.
Hmm.
What's with all the stuff out there? You're putting stuff out there. I'm putting stuff out there. WKO webinars. Johnny's telling you something. Chris is doing something. With all the information out there, how can somebody boil down where to start? Besides going back to the basic that you already said, just ride your bike. Like, go out and
Fundamentals.
put in the
Yeah.
fundamental. What would you say are two or three fundamentals to training?
I was in a like a USA coaches conference seminar years ago, and Sam Callan, the director of coaching education, said, any athlete that follows any plan is going to get faster. And so I think the biggest thing for any athlete, disseminating all the information, is get on a plan
Mm-hmm.
and put your heart and soul into it to get faster. And within that plan, hopefully the fundamentals will be there, which is number one, if you want to get faster, determine how much you've been riding and increase that overall training load. Like, if I love the things at the end of the year with Strava. It's like, you rode 800 hours and climbed 800,000 feet, and it's like, okay, you want to be better next year? Well, let's increase that by 15 or 20%, and then figure out whatever that is and design your training on that. Did you do, and the other thing, that this isn't a fundamental, but it's like, you want to keep doing intervals and develop that power. You can, develop your power over years, 5 years, 10 years, and same way with endurance. That's when the old timers talk about, they got a lot of miles in their legs, things like that. So keep, keep chipping away at that. But I would say, ride more than you have been, train with a power meter, because I mean, it's just next level to heart rate based training.
Yeah.
Use your data. And anyone these days, like in 04, 05, we didn't exactly know what was up with the power data. And I remember when we released the performance manager chart, I told everyone, I was like, no one's going to get it. They're going to misuse this, and it's going to be misunderstood, and everyone's going to either be like that or like WTF. And, like 10 years later, and maybe even more, like 12, 13, 14 years later, it's become more mainstream and people kind of know how to use it. So use the science, use the softwares, packages, things like that. But at the same time, it's like, like what you're alluding to, is like, you can't forget the fundamentals. Ride more. The
Mm-hmm.
other thing I would say about power-based training is just like, figure out your threshold and track it. You don't need to test more than like 2 or 3 times a year. Use your race data to
Mm-hmm.
complement that testing. That's generally when you're gonna make your. But we always say race data is the best data. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when you got a number on your back and you're shoulder to shoulder, or when you're about to win or about to get dropped, and you dig that extra bit deeper, that's when you make your best data. And that's the stuff you really want to earmark and look at, from like whatever, season to season.
Mm-hmm.
um I guess, like, ride more, train with power, threshold
No,
training.
there's so
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
as
yeah,
as I asked you that question, I'm like, God, that's a tough question. I don't even know what I would
yeah,
say for two things, because I
yeah.
was having a conversation with a guy about just work kilojoules, and we started working
Mhm,
together. I want to say 2017, and I just showed him year by year KJs, and then I
mhm,
showed him. He's not a super big guy, so I can't remember the exact numbers, but the number of 2,000 KJ rides they did per season, and it's like,
mhm.
this year because of the pandemic, he like doubled them. He just had more time to ride. But I was like, look
Yeah.
at this progression, even from he had a power meter in like 2015, and it was just like so. I think he had none the first year, and then I'm like, dude, look at how this is one big reason why you're getting faster. It's not just the day-to-day intervals; it's your year over year. You're clearly still in love riding, and that's a huge reason why you're getting faster. It's
Yep.
macro, big picture. Again, we're saying like step back and look at the forest. And I talked to another guy who wants to do sub 9 at Leadville, and he's just doing more work, and he's fine. He's
Yep.
got a gravel bike now, so that's kind of, he's a doctor, so he's busy and da da da. I'm like, dude, just stay on the path that you're on. Like, this is why you're making those gains. And he's a patient athlete. You know, he's chipping away. He wants to hit 300 for 20 minutes, and he's getting closer and closer. And I think that's one thing that if people can have that delayed excitement, and like cycling is a slow burn. There's another guy, another coach. I'm not going to drop his name now, but because I'm going to post him probably after you or before you. I don't want people to hear his name to ruin the surprise, but he had said, you know, people don't understand, like you're getting in a sport where in a year you might not get better. Like in a year, like this is really look at your career as 5 years, 10 years, da, da, da. And you know, it's really tough to squeeze out those percentage gains. It takes a lot. It's really more of a lifestyle.
Yeah,
Um,
you gotta, to your point, it's like, you've been doing cycling since when you came to us, that was what, 2006 or 7 or 8
no, it
in
was '09.
'09.
Mm-hmm.
Still a long time ago, and you've been, riding a lot every year since then. And so a lot of times people will point out to me, oh, I want to be like him, and he won Masters Nationals this year. And I'm like, okay, I want to take you back to 10 years ago where he was, and show you the progression and all the hard work he did. And so you have to be patient. Maybe that's one of the other fundamentals is, patience, put, hard work, and if you don't succeed, keep trying. Because generally, if you go to a race, and when people say, I want to win this race, I'm like, well, what's your results? And they're like, well, I haven't done it yet. And I'm like, okay, all right, well, let's set a 3-year plan. Let's have you finish this race next year. Let's do a top 20 or top 10 based on the previous year's results.
Yes.
And then the third year, let's look at maybe getting up on the podium. And then maybe it takes another year, to go to the top step. So that's 4 years right there. Like when we worked with the national team athletes, first year for everyone, no matter how good they were, was to just finish the races, get that experience. Second year was like maybe ride a breakaway or get results. Third year was, maybe just get a result, but not in every single race. I mean, it takes, USAC and U23 program, it's a 7-year progression from the time you're 18 to, they give you 7 years. This is the old way of doing it. They don't, it doesn't work that way anymore, but take the best of the best at 18 years old. They want you to move on to a world tour team by the time you're 25. That's 7 years.
That's
And they're,
crazy.
training their butts off, but that's how long it takes. And I think if amateurs, just can have fun along the way and work hard and, enjoy the process. Generally cycling is, it's so awesome because what you put into it is what you get out of it. And so there's no magic bullets, there's no quick fixes. A lot of people like go big for one season and then it doesn't quite work out, and then they quit or they get bummed out. And it's like, nah, just keep going and take a break for 2 weeks at least, but keep going. And
Keep
that's,
going, dude.
you got to build upon that.
I love that, man. And I think I had an athlete that we were talking about land run, and he's a cat 4, I think. He's like, all right, dude, I want a top 20. I was like, cool. That's a freaking stellar, huge reach goal. I want a top 20. He's like, you want a top what? And I was like, dude, do you know who goes to that race? Like, yeah, top 20. I'm okay. Like, I'm racing to do better than that. But if I'm top 20, like, okay, the race went pretty well. And somebody else, this girl had said, well, I look on Strava and I see you and Tanner Ward doing 20-hour weeks. I want to do 20-hour weeks. I said, Tanner's been riding a bike a really long time. And yeah, I just want to politely tell you, like, I'm I'm not insulted, but go look on Strava at how many miles you've ridden, how many I've ridden. She goes, holy crap, you've ridden 120,000 miles. And how many have you ridden? She goes, 15. I was like, so if we start putting together 20-hour weeks,
Yeah.
you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to not
Yeah.
absorb the, like, you know, and I
Yeah.
almost want to put a blog out of what I did in 2009. Like Jason never would let me do a 20-hour week. I wasn't even asking for one. I didn't know what that meant, but it was like, you know, that was the big one amazing tip that he gave me was we did long endurance rides when I could handle it on the weekend, learn to do back-to-back rides. And it was Sunday, the watts were way lower than Saturday. And I
Oh
was like,
yeah.
how do guys do this? And Jason's like, dude,
Yeah.
keep doing it. Keep doing
Yeah.
it. Keep doing
Yeah.
it. And we're not looking 6 months down the road, man. We're looking 4 years down the road. And it really opened my eyes. And I think if there was an outtake, if I did outtakes, that would be it, of just how long this takes for you to get as good as you can become. Patrick, the guy I coach with, always talks. He's like, man, those people that go for like a year, they burn so hot. He's like, that's not, what is that? And I'm like, I don't know. It's not either of us, because we're more like lifelong cyclists. I think people just maybe see the sport and like, well, I want to do that. And then they realize like, oh, damn, this actually takes a lot of time and work.
You got to be a lifer, you know, like that's what I call it. Like you got to be a lifer, just be in it. You see this a lot in the multi-sport world where um, they're like, okay, I'm gonna do an Ironman, and then they run super hot, and then they get done with the Ironman, and they're like, all right, I'm gonna go do something else in my life, and uh, you know, they like quit their coaching, and it's like, wow, we just work every day together, and we built up this great relationship, um, and now you're quitting. You can't do that. But like cyclists don't do that. They're, you know, the ones that get far in the sport are the lifers, you know, that really just like, you know, keep moving forward, keep going.
Yeah, that's it. I gotta look back of where this came out from, because a guy that I coach, he keeps talking about it. And I guess I said somewhere, I'm like, cycling, like it's a lifestyle, figure it out. Just like if you're working a 9 to 5, okay, can you ride at 5 a.m.? Figure it out. Like you just gotta find the time, make the time. And if it's not a priority, then it's not a priority, but don't expect to compete against people who love this and are lifers and live it. Couple more for you, and then I'll let you go. This has been awesome, man. What do you think is some mistakes that you see? So, you know, I really like people to try to upgrade as fast as possible into, you know, do some races, get a W, move on. Don't stay at Cat 4 because you want to win this race in 4 months in your hometown. Like, get to Cat 3. More people are at the same level. As people get to like 3, 2, 1, a lot of people are dedicated. What do you see some mistakes that people are making? Or maybe said differently, like what are some other things? We've talked a lot of things, little things that people can improve on, maybe some optimizations that people can do in their training. Does anything stand out to you right away when I ask that? Any like big picture things you see a lot of higher level amateurs doing that is just like, dude, change this little thing and it'll have a bigger effect for you?
Um, yeah, that could be so many things. It just depends on the situation. Um,
Hit
a
me with
lot
just a
of
couple.
yeah. I mean, like you need to get more tactical experience from races, get more experience, you know, race more, and just that's why the track is so good. You can go do 6 races in a night, and you get 6 different tactical, you know, moments that you're going to learn from, and that would take 6 weeks if you did 1 crit a week, things like that. You know, race as much as you can. Do, you know, like a Dairyland, or you know, you know, the 4-day crit series is things like that, Tulsa Toughs, and so a lot of times people can get, and happens a lot these days, is guys will get, and gals can get hella strong from training, and then they go to the race and maybe they're not even that good at drafting or conserving energy, or you know, making the right decisions at the right time. So that you need some race experience to do that. And that generally, the more you race, that'll come pretty quickly. So it's not like it's unobtainable.
That's a really good answer though, because there's so many people that indoor, they're like, well, my FTP is skyrocketed 50 watts. I'm going to crush.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think
I mean,
I've
we
said
have guys.
in
Yeah.
every podcast, Justin Williams was on one. He's like, okay, wait, just so we're clear, half of this is Watson, half of this is this thing called bike racing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
is yeah, it's not an FTP contest, unfortunately. But those are good. And I'm
Yeah.
not trying to cut you off. Do you have any other ones that pop in your head?
Yeah, sure. I mean, nutrition could be one. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you're, and then also just choosing which races you choose to go for. It's like, if you weigh 170, you're a big boy, big gal, whatever, look at flatter, rolly races. Don't choose a Tour, a Gila, that the athletes that are 135, 140, they have a power to weight advantage.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, if you're 150, and this gets into a whole thing, it's like, look at your diet. Are you fueling your workouts? You see this a lot these days, the prevalence of people just trying to lose weight and not eating. And you can still fuel your workouts and obtain an optimal body composition with proper nutrition. And the other thing is, the older you get, the less you can get away with. And
Mm-hmm.
when you're 25 and 30, your metabolism wins and keeps you nice and lean and everything. But when you get up to be like 35 and 40, you really got to watch it. When you're older, it's even worse, like the way I am.
I hate this. So how old are you now?
I'm like 29. Yeah.
All right. Well,
No, I'm turning 50 this year. So
hell yeah, dude. Are you gonna
yeah.
do some do you do any masters races? Would you do like come and bash at like masters roads or something?
I'm not that into that in Masters Road. I mean,
No.
I still race gravel. So,
Okay.
and so the reason why I like gravel is because they're everything that you like in a road race and none of the stuff you don't. So, when I was coming along, give me a 100-mile road race with some elevation and some difficulty, and that was my jam. And those just don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And that's what gravel races are. They're road tactics. You got to be hard as nails. They're endurance. There's some hard moments. Generally, the roadies will outwit the non-roadies that don't have that tactical experience. Once in a while, you'll get a mountain biker that is just
gravel worlds.
super strong.
Gravel
See,
world.
the ultra distance doesn't attract me because it's not racing. It's just finishing. And
Oh, it's not, I mean, 150. Do you consider that ultra?
at my age, yes.
Fair enough.
Because yeah,
Fair enough.
I mean, when you do an 80 or 100-mile race, you're actually going to finish with people. When you do a 150-mile race, you're probably going to be by yourself for the last 90 minutes. That's what I mean by finishing. So, but maybe not at your level because you're still like in it in all that.
Still trying to be in it, man. It's getting That was gonna be my comment of like it was really funny. I was saying to my husband Chris, I was like, damn dude, like I got a little maybe ate a little bit too much at like Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever. And then I was like, this thing took a little bit longer to go away this year. And I don't know if it was different than last year. I mean, I'm 39, but it seemed like the difference in being like, oop, gotta lose a pound or two is much more of a factor 2 years later. And I remember saying that at 37, like, damn, this is harder than it was at 35. And so it's definitely something that is, it's really, I was thinking about that of, okay, when am I racing? How light do I really have to be? And it's always an interesting topic to talk to athletes about because the initial impression is as skinny as possible. I'm like, not necessarily. Like,
Depends on the race.
Depends on the race. Make sure you're still putting out watts because I'll usually race around 182. I've been 177. I've had a couple good races. I've had a couple races where I was just like, I don't feel like myself. And I felt like I was losing some overdrive. It was a weird feeling, but maybe that's what really light feels like. I don't know. But
again, I mean, like I've raced at 148 pounds and I did really well with the climbing races, but not so good on the flat ones. And then couple years later and like having kids, you raced at 155 and, I'm not doing as good at the climbing races, but you're off the front on the flat stuff and you're time trialing better and things like that. It's just more muscle.
Well, it's crazy because then I even have to have like a buddy like Patrick who's like, dude, why do you try to be 5 pounds lighter? You're not winning any climbing race to begin with, and you always are trying
Mhm.
to time trial at the front. Like, dude, just go put out big watts for 4 hours. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe I should do that instead. Maybe
Yeah.
I will eat this extra bagel.
Yeah.
um, do you have any? I think I hit everything that I was curious about, man. This was awesome. A lot of good. The more of these people that I talk to is really making me see and re-examine myself, like how strong is my mind game and how much am I thinking of all the other things besides watts? Because a lot of the stuff of these points that we brought up, like of how to train, but a lot of it was not watt based. Um, anything else you want to bring up or parting words for the people as we approach an hour here?
One thing or two things that we didn't talk about is recovery.
Mm,
And,
let's do it.
yeah, I mean, and it's usually not a thing until you get to be about, 40 plus. And, um, I presume when I was less than 40, recovery was never an issue. When I'm 30, you know, I could go do two-hour mountain bike races, full gas, back to back each weekend. Really, the second race on the second day was no worse than the first.
Mm-hmm.
Same way with cyclocross or like doing a stage race.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it changes. These days, there's so much out there in terms of like information and tools you can use, to recover and, you know, massage and, ways to, if you can't do a massage, it's like, well, you can do this or you can do that. And the other thing to that is like, just get 8 hours of sleep, start
Mm-hmm.
there. And if you're not getting 8 hours of sleep and you're, worrying about your whoop score, start with 8 hours and, or try to get 9. I mean, if you're younger and you can get more, they say the world tour athletes are professional sleepers. They can sleep 10, 11 hours a night, maybe, and then that on top of a nap. So
That's amazing.
that's kind of like the next level for, to if you've already been, if you're already topping out at 20, 25 hours, look at your recovery and see if that doesn't help. And it's not an overnight thing. It's something, the consistent practice, like at least a half year. And that's
Of
where
in
you
terms of
hear
like
the,
getting into a rhythm of getting more sleep and like sleep hygiene, things like that, when you say a half a year?
well, to reap the benefit. It's not like,
Okay.
if you get 10 hours of sleep, it's not like you're magically,
I
you know, better
Frank, I slept 10
over
hours, but
overnight.
I'm not any faster. That was a horrible tip.
Yeah. Sleep like 10 hours and do your recovery modalities for 6 months. That's you're going to be able to train more, and you'll also be able to physiologically adapt from that training day to day, which cumulatively adds up to more over
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And then see that, that's what I meant like by
Yeah,
that.
got it. No, that's
Mhm.
awesome. What was the other topic that you were thinking of besides recovery?
You were talking about mindset and,
Mm-hmm.
mindset, there's an expression, you want to practice how you want to play. So
Mm-hmm.
bring the intensity to your interval training sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's going to tell you how you're going to play. Do you give up? Do you push through? So forth. The other thing that'll really help, with your mindset, is you're going to have to put some work into it. So train your brain. It's not a muscle, but, exercise your muscle. And the two biggest ways that I've seen that helps athletes is develop a meditation practice and or yoga. Yoga is kind of like moving meditation,
Mm-hmm.
but meditation is kind of next level for that next level edge with mindset. So it doesn't take much. There's a bazillion things out there. You can start with like um, there's like apps on your phone that,
Mm-hmm.
like, waking up is a really good one. um, the other one is escaping me, but
Headspace.
Headspace is great. But do a yoga practice. I mean, that's breathing. If you can, you know
Do you
do
do
like a one, sorry, go ahead.
do you
If
do
you
breathe?
can do like a 1 hour pose, not a 1 hour pose, a 1 hour class. And if
I was
you're in
like,
this,
damn.
no, no, no. If you're in this like deep pose, you're 50 minutes into the class and it starts to burn and you're thinking about not holding your pose. If you can get to the point where you just breathe and hold it, Guess what you
Mm-hmm.
can do when you're doing VO2 max intervals?
Mm-hmm.
You relax, release the death clench on your handlebar, take a deep breath, just kind of be in that moment. And then you can do that in a bike race when you're suffering and and
Yes.
try to that's the things, the ways that I've seen meditation help.
Have you done any specific respiratory training or breathing? Have you looked into this at all? And this is gonna sound like a shameless plug, but I work with this company. So Aerofit,
Mhm.
I saw this device on Facebook and I was like, dude, this thing looks interesting. So I messaged these guys and they're like, yeah, we'll send you one. You want to try it out? And I'm like, well, I'd like to try it out. I have this blog. I'm going to write a review on it. If it's good, I'm not going to poo poo on your product.
Yeah.
Dude, so they're like, well, yeah, you got to train with it. And it was before I did tour of Southland in New Zealand. So last November. So I got this thing at the end of September. And they, on the website, they have like a rower, a speed skater. Anyways, within 5 weeks, I was getting ready for the stage race. And my breathing during VO2 max was definitely much more calm and like controlled. And I'm like, this is interesting. I'm gonna go do like a 20-minute FTP effort. And I didn't even feel like I was working hard. And I was like,
Mhm.
this is insane. And so it's a lot of it is not only learning the technique of breathing, which sounds stupid, but a lot of athletes like freak out when they're doing these hard efforts. And it really almost helps you. Like, when you go to your first 1, 2, 3 race, it's like your head is on a swivel and there's like attack, and it's like this isn't a Cat 4 race anymore. And then the race eventually slows down. This device has really helped me like slow down my own body in my own movements. And so I've tried to look into, they're very into like, it comes from like Temo breathing and like the stuff that Wim Hof does. You maybe have heard of that guy. And
Yeah.
I haven't done much more beyond using the exercises that they have. But when you bring this up in meditation, it's like one more thing to add to my to-do list, I guess, of getting more into meditating, because it's not something that I practice, but everybody I think that meditates is like, it's the best thing in my life. So
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
it.
yeah, you know how like we're inundated with screens all day
Mhm.
and it's just information, you're thinking and thinking. Basically, meditation is a recovery interval for your brain.
Mm,
And
mhm,
you don't, if you get good at it, you can sit for 10 minutes and just breathe. You're not thinking about
mhm.
the your training, your intervals, your mortgage, your any other stress in your life, and that's I think what a lot of people report back. But yoga class does that for me, and because I have trouble sitting still, and because yoga's like Phil jokes, it's like Simon Says for adults, but it helps you get into it and get out of everything else in life, and
Yeah,
kind of it's like a 1 hour recovery
I
break.
like it. Mine
Mhm.
is I swipe down for the do not disturb and go on my bike ride. And
Yeah.
that's one of the best changes of having left medical device world, is when I was worried about the hospital or a surgeon calling me, I had the ghost ring. Like I'd be like, oh my God, I think someone's calling me. And I'd pull my phone out and like no one called me, like, God damn it. And it was just
Yeah.
really horrible. So now to be able to do that, I'm like, damn, I should have done this years ago. But yeah,
Mhm.
live and learn. So hey man,
Yeah.
it was awesome, Frank. It's really good to catch up. I was looking forward to hopefully seeing you. Well, actually, it was going to be in London this year, so I don't know. But it was great to see you at the Training Peaks meeting, and
Oh
hopefully,
yeah. Yeah.
hopefully
Yeah.
COVID goes away and we get to catch up at the next one. And would
I
you have
hope
gone to
so.
London?
That's a big trip, but
It's a big
I like
trip.
to travel. That would have been
It
pretty
would have been.
cool.
It was going
Yeah.
to be my
It depends on the
experience.
speakers. When for those conferences, I always look at who's speaking and, yeah, is it something awesome, or is it something or some that doesn't really,
Mm-hmm.
that I think I'll benefit from. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of good conferences out there, uh, in Europe that is, but, yeah, maybe. Did you attend the virtual one this past
I missed
fall?
it, and I'm like zoomed out, and I'm just trying to do a lot of
Yeah,
these type of things, and I was like, ooh. So I
yeah.
didn't. Did you?
I like had it going in the background.
There were
But
some I really
yeah.
wanted to hear, and then they're like, and I'm like, ooh, they're taping them. I'll watch the tape things. They're like, they're up for a week. I'm like, I'm gonna do it, and then I was like,
Mhm.
shoot, the week passed.
I know. Yeah,
This
that's
is
why I like conferences, because get off your screen and look at,
Exactly.
yeah. And plus you get to talk with other coaches and everything.
That's what I loved, and meeting other people and just seeing what people are doing. And, I think
Mhm.
that's one reason why I wanted to have you on this. It's like, you're going to think of things differently than I will. And it's always, I think everybody thinks every coach has to be like, when I had posted that thing about sweet spot, some people were like, "Oh, are you talking about Trainer Road? Go get them." And I was like, "No, man. Like, I talk to those guys. We're cool. Like, we do some things differently, but we don't not like each other." So
Yeah.
it's funny. But
Yeah.
hey, man.
Everyone wants to be PC Mac or Ford Chevy. And yeah, we're not like trying to be that way. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you sharing all these insights. This is definitely beneficial for a lot of people, and hopefully we cross paths not only in a meeting but on a you're not so you well, gravel bike. We can do a gravel ride together, and
You know it.
hopefully we
Yeah.
pass each other to race. That'd be fun. So
You should come out to Steamboat Gravel or
I would die.
yeah, no,
I'll
you wouldn't.
go.
You would that race doesn't have that much climbing, so
There's no
you could
crazy
do you could
descents. Oh, okay.
no, no,
I
no,
was
no,
picture.
you're fine.
So I did Oregon Trail,
That's a
and
that's a whole different type of gravel race.
holy
Yeah,
cow. So
yeah.
the giant, I mean, the guys that I'm out with are mountain bikers and gravel riders
Mhm.
on DNA, and the giant factory like Tristan Ewell and Barry, I want to say Sanders is not that.
Very Wicks.
Barry Wicks.
Yes,
So I am going down
yes.
some sense like I might go over this freaking like I
Yeah.
got dropped I got dropped on the climbs, but even if I could see those guys, I'd be like, I'm gonna catch them. And I was like, oh, they're actually going much faster on the downhills than I could even consider doing. And so I
Yeah.
had a bike that only could have because of the clearance, and is horrible. It had a 35 on the back and a 34 up front, I think it was. And so I saw Barry Wicks afterwards, and he was like, "Did you ride that bike this whole week?" And I was like, "Yes." He's like, "With those tires?" He's like, "Yes." He's like, "That scares me." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm really glad you said that, because I felt like the biggest baby, but I was very scared on some of these descents." And I mean, descending's not my thing. I'm just not good at it. And yeah, that was gnarly. So when I saw the steamboat thing, I was like, I'm gonna stick here in Iowa where I just do some turns.
In Colorado, we have what's called the Gucci gravel, and it's very benign. I race Steamboat Gravel with 32 millimeter tires on my road bike. It's a road
Okay.
bike course. There's
Interesting.
nothing technical about it. It's very beginner friendly. That's why it's so good for the getting new people into the
Oh,
sport.
damn.
But like an Oregon trail race, you need like 40 millimeter tires or a mountain bike. Those
Dude, they
are
had
gnarly.
those
Yeah.
guys, and kudos to them, I guess. Who's the leader of their team? The older guy with the mustache. Anyways, that
Carl Decker.
Carl Decker took his
Yeah.
motorcycle and reconned everything. And I don't even
Yeah.
know. These guys are like, they got 2.1 tires. I'm like, what the hell is a 2.1? They're like, it's really big. And he cut off all the knobs. So they were just ripping some of these courses. And I was like, all right, I'm here to have fun this week. I was really trying to get a top 10 overall. And granted, there was I don't know how many people were in this gravel race, but it was really only probably like 15 people really racing.
Mhm.
I think I got 11th. But yeah, those guys, man, they go fast uphill, and I was like holding on, and it was super fun though. The climbs were fun. We had one horrible weather day, but other than that, it was cool. But a lot of
Yeah.
sand, not my thing. So
Right. You got to have some mountain bike or cyclocross roots in you. But gravel, to me, at least the ones that I do, it's like a road race with it's just like a race of attrition, that sort of thing.
yeah, I'm into that. Maybe
Yeah,
you'll see
you'd
me
be
out
good
there.
at it.
All right. Well, I'm going to take that. You know much more than people that were telling me I'd be good at cross. And that's when I realized a lot of people didn't know about like performance in cycling. People are like, you're going to be amazing at cross. You have a lot of power. And I was like, wait, you have to get off and jump and bike. I'm like, I suck at this. What are you
We
talking?
have a weekend skills camp. We'll teach you everything you need to know. Yeah,
Because hey, everything can be done in a weekend. That's
that's
the
right.
takeaway. You
That's
need
what.
one
Yeah.
weekend and one 10-hour sleep session, and you will be
Well,
a pro.
we'll tell you. We'll show you how to do it right, and then we'll say, now go do 10,000 reps. You can do that on your own time.
There you go. Hey, man, this is a great end note, and I appreciate your time and look forward to
You
seeing you
bet.
in real life.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for having me, Brendan.
Yeah, Frank, take care.
Take care, man.
See ya.
Bye bye.